Now the last trouble spot for people cutting rabbets is maintaining consistent depth. Invariably, you'll end up with a cut that's maybe deeper at the beginning or sometimes deeper at the end, or sometimes both, and you've got a hump in the middle, which can be a little difficult to deal with. This comes from the fact that even though all of these planes have fancy depth stops, and you see even on this more traditional, we have a depth stop, but they're not very big. They don't offer a very large bearing surface. So it's easy to kind of rock the plane back or rock the plane forward. You have to be very careful here that you're referencing the depth stop properly. So what I do is this other hand that's pressing the fence up against things, I center it right behind the depth stop. My thumb is actually sitting on the fence post here, which sits right behind the depth stop. So not only am I pressing this hand up against the board itself, I'm also making sure that I've got a little bit of pressure down right where that depth stop is, which is great when you're starting the cut. But as you're exiting the cut, you'll notice if I'm putting too much pressure down here, things can rock forward and I'll end up with a deeper cut here. Well, this goes back to basic plane technique, where when you start the cut, your weight's on the front of the plane. In the middle of the cut, your weight is evenly dispersed between the front and the back. When you exit the cut, there should be no weight on the front and all the weight on the back. This is with a joiner plane, jack plane, smoother plane, rabbet plane. It's all the same. If your weight is too heavy as you exit the cut, you will taper that cut and end up with a deeper cut on this end. Likewise, if you don't have enough weight on the start of the cut and more weight on the back, it will tilt down and you'll end up with a deeper cut at the start of this cut. So good, even pressure to the point where as I'm leaving or finishing this cut, I can take my hand away and there should be no weight out there at all. At this point, the weight is all in the back and I'm letting the flatness of the sole determine the floor of this dado, or rabbet rather. And the same thing applies with this more traditional philister. I've got a relatively small depth stop here, so it's a matter of putting my thumb on the plane behind the depth stop. I try not to put it on the knob because I tend to want to actually twist a little bit, and I can actually change the setting on that. But with the weight down right behind the depth stop, I can very easily maintain the depth stop in contact or parallel to the surface of the board. Likewise, as I exit the cut though, if I'm pushing down too hard, I will taper the board. So it's the same principle where you transfer your weight and then as I'm finishing the cut, there's no weight on the toe.